You are listening to Lagoon Radio. You are listening to Lagoon Radio.
All right, good morning and welcome to another newspaper review update here on Lagoon Radio, your number one online gospel radio station, powered by the Diocese of Lagos Anglican Communion. Yeah, my name is Taiwo Adiola Shabiligbe and I'm your host today. With me in the studio is Olabisi Semidele. Okay, I just
See how she did call my full name now. Wow.
and I have Nina Abigail Umba.
Hello.
Hi, good morning.
Bonjour, bonjour.
Comment ça va?
Ça va bien, merci.
Peace, peace, peace.
Ça va bien, merci.
All right, in the meantime, you can like and follow us on Facebook at Lagoon Radio Nigeria, on Instagram and Twitter is at Lagoonradio.Ng. You can also download the Lagoon Radio app on Google Play Store and App Store, irrespective of the device that you use. In no particular order, we have the Leadership newspaper, the New Telegraph, Blueprint newspaper, Nigerian Tribune, Daily Trust, National Economy, Daily Independent, Al Jazeera, the Nigerian Pilot, and we try to just to cover these papers. I'll be starting with the Leadership newspaper. At the very top of the paper, let's make AFCFTA work. PMB tells African leaders. The story is on the front page and you can continue reading on page 7. And boldly written on the front page, rising hardship. SCF, Ohanese, Afenifere, and others advise federal government on the way out. On the right down there, it says, I want creative thinkers in cabinet. Poverty, unemployment worse in the north. Jega. Experts call for policy overhaul to curb inflation. We are working to crash food prices, says federal government. How did you find on page 4 of the Leadership newspaper? And by the side of the paper, ASU gives federal government 3-week ultimatum to meet unions' demand. NGOs vulnerable to terrorist financing, says EFCC. This you can find on page 8 of the paper. Bandits ready to lay down arms, says Gumi. The story is on page 12. Judiciary's timely intervention saved democracy from collapse, says CJN, that's the Chief Judge of Nigeria. The story is on page 6. Federal government wants procurement of COVID-19 vaccines cards. Story is on page 9. State battles 300 billion naira pension liabilities. And right under it says a bleak retirement awaits workers in defaulting state. The story is on the front page and you can continue reading on page 4 of the paper. I think that's all on the Leadership newspaper.
All right, moving on to New Telegraph, right at the top of the New Telegraph. Retirement, federal government cuts pension liability by 89.85 billion naira. We can get that on page 4 of the New Telegraph. And as regards loans, FCC, PC, CBN, ICPC to go after unorthodox lenders. You can get the full details on page 8 of the New Telegraph. And boldly written at the front page of the New Telegraph, bandits ready to lay down arms for education, says Gumi. And the rider under that says, float school in Kaduna Grazing Reserve to help curb their violent ideologies. All the full details can be found on page 3 of the New Telegraph. And we have some other headlines there. Senate's plan to create more law schools suffers setback as Legal Education Council. Others reject proposal. That's on page 5 of the New Telegraph. Sanwo-Olu vows to implement judicial panel's report on NSAS Lekki shooting. That's also on page 5 as panel awards 43.9 million naira to I think 70 activists. So can get it on page 5 as well. New Telegraph award dedicated to people of Benue, says Governor Autumn. That's on page 4 of the New Telegraph paper. Sani, Jonathan Bajabia Mila Kalu Tinubu ACF Commissarate with Dangote. That's on page 3 and page 7. I think we actually read that yesterday.
Yes.
Loss of his brother.
The loss of his brother. May so rest in peace. As regards budget 2022, YMDA's kick against envelope system. That's on page 3 of New Telegraph. Right under that says House-backed security agencies exemption from envelope budgeting. Then on page 8 of the New Telegraph, allowances. ASU issues 3-week ultimatum over failed promises. Then on our health, that's on page 27 of the New Telegraph. It's a medical study. Less salt, more potassium reduces heart disease risk. And that's all on the New Telegraph.
And moving on to the Blueprint newspaper, First Money agents standing out from other POS operators. That can be found on page 8. MOU, about 1 year after, ASU threatens fresh strike, as we've seen in other newspapers. And of course, they give the federal government 3 weeks ultimatum, and also urges the government to honor the agreements they had with them. That can be found on page 6. CBN, EFCC, FCCPC orders to tackle loan sharks. That is on page 22 of the Blueprint newspaper. Nigerian leaders lack intellectual capacity. Jega is saying on page 5. Gunmen on rampage kill Benue monarch's son, adopt daughter. The writer under that says kill 15 in Sokoto, kidnap factory workers in Niger, attack Zamfara community for defaulting in levy payment. RCCG pastor regains freedom in Cross River State. All of that is on page 14. And then on page 5, Gumi builds school for headers. Okay. And then at the lower end of the Blueprint newspaper, Mbaka to IPOB, Monday sit-at-home problem instead of solution. You can also read that up on page 5. Buhari, Lawan, Ganduje condole with Dangote over his brother's death. Then NCC raises alarm over Iranian hackers targeting telcos, ISPs. That is on page 21. Federal government records slight improvement in fiscal deficit at 1.9 trillion naira. That is on page 22. And then on the NSAS, panel submits report to Sanwo-Olu. You can read that up on page 7 of the Blueprint newspaper.
All right, moving on to the Nigerian Tribune. At the very top of the paper, we say Council of Legal Education, NBA, senators reject proposed establishment of 6 law school campuses. The story is right on page 8. ASU threatens fresh strike. And the writer to the story says, gives federal government 21 days to implement agreement. Still expecting 22.127 billion naira earned allowance. Set up committee to investigate issues surrounding appointment of Pantami as professor. All these you find on page 8 of the Nigerian Tribune newspaper. Journalist dead. Family says please IRT SWAT's report confusing. The writer to that story says sister says part of deceased body packed in mortuary burnt. The story is on page 27. A regional autonomy additional states best political solution for Biafra agitation. Ohaneze worldwide tells federal government. The story is on page 5. And boldly written on the front page, NSAS panel establishes killing in Lekki. Government set up 4-man panel on white paper. And the writer to that story says committee to submit report in 2 weeks. Treated 235 petitions. Awarded 470 billion naira to 70 victims. But the story is on page 24 of the paper. And at the side of the paper, the federal government demands probe into death of Nigerian in Côte d'Ivoire prison. The story is on page 25. North with highest indexes of social challenges bedvilling Nigeria. Jega. This you find on page 5 of the Nigerian Tribune. 15 killed as bandits attacked 2 local government areas in Sokoto. Page 27. Makinde direct withdrawal of doctored local government appointees list. This story is on page 24. 3 years after daughter's gruesome death, mother suffers some same fate. Same fate. I think we read this yesterday. And it's really a painful one. The story is on page 15, anyways. 7 burnt to death in Lagos Ibadan Expressway crash. The story is on page 26. Court ejects Lagos PDP from secretariat over unpaid rent. Okay. The story is on page 23. I think we've got some interesting news. You might want to take a look at this paper. Okay, that'll be all. On the front page, we have pictures of, the Secretary of the State Governor, Mrs. Falasha Diraji, and Deputy Governor, Dr. Obafemi Hamzat, Governor of Babajide Sanwo-Olu, and the Attorney General and Commissioner for Justice, Mr. Moyosore. Mr. Moyosore, shortly after the presentation of the report of the Judicial Panel of Inquiry report on restitution for victims of the SARS-related abuses and other matters of Lagos State at Ikeja, Lagos. Yeah, that's it.
All right, moving on to Daily Trust, boldly written at the front page of the Daily Trust. Troops kill 50 ISWAP fighters in Borno, and the right under that says, as bandit execute 15 persons in Sokoto, attack Zamfara village for failing to pay levy. And about the Lekki toll gate, panel says 11 dead. And wow. Okay. BUA chair says it's cheaper to transport container from China to Lagos than Lagos to Kano. Like, seriously? All right. And right at page 5 of the Daily Trust, Ohaneze wants autonomous region. That's on page 5 of Daily Trust. Sani Dangote's body arrives Kaduna today for burial. And on page 4 of the Daily Trust, Nigeria on alert as Iranian cyber spies target Telecos ISPs. And right at the bottom of the Daily Trust papers, Buhari approves fresh 656.1 billion naira bailout for states, and as governors meet over Paris Club refund. That's on page 6 of the Daily Trust. I think that'll be all for the Daily Trust papers.
And then moving on to national economy, at the top of the paper, we'll see we'll improve economy through multilateral financing, President Buhari tells Afrimex Bank. That you can continue reading the story on page 4. CBN, EFCC orders turn the heat on loan sharks. They are set to investigate rights violation of Nigerians by questionable money lenders. The story can also be continued on page 4 of the national economy. High inflation, 5.6 million Nigerians will fall into poverty. World Bank has said. That is on page 5. NCC alerts Nigerians on hacking group targeting telecoms ISPs. That is on page 4 of the national economy. That's the front page. That's it.
All right. Taking the Daily Trust spot. Super Eagles battle Cape Verde in make or mar clash. The story is on the front page there. And so 2021 Kano Swan Intermedia Cup kicks off November 26th. Still on the front page of the paper. Nigerian football referees are owed indemnities. NRA confirms, says it's not unusual. The story is there on the page. Kefi Polo donates trophy to immortalize late Captain Okumbo. The story is right there on the page of the paper.
Yeah, then moving on to Daily Independent, right at the top of the Daily Independent, still on ASU. ASU gives the federal government 3 weeks ultimatum, threatens fresh strikes. And right under that says, inaugurates committee to probe Pantami's professorship. You can get that on the inside of the Daily Independent. Nigerians patronizing black market to procure vaccination cards, says federal government. And right, boldly written at the front page of the Daily Independent, dip in oil output may worsen economy. Analysts say drop may eat into fabric of earnings. Forex can get that on page 4 of the Daily Independent. And on page 6 of the Daily Independent papers, inflation falls to 15.99% ahead of CBN's decision on interest rate. And moving on to page 7, federal government to establish labs in tertiary institutions, research centers. And the writer says restates commitment to ensure independence of the judiciary. And moving on to page 29 of the Daily Independent, NSAS panel, Sanwo-Olu sets up 4-member committee for white paper report. As a panel treated 235 petitions, awarded 410 million naira to 70 victims. And still on the Benue Council chairman says others kill 1,773 persons in 3 years. Benue Council chairman. Rider says wants deployment of special forces at entry points into the state. Gunmen attack Benue Monarch's palace, kill son and abduct daughter. Can continue the story on page 7 of the Daily Independent. NCC alert cyber spionage group targeting telcos and ISPs. That's on page 2 of the Daily Independent. And lastly, on the Daily Independent paper, federal government demands explanation into death of Nigerian in Ivorian prison. That's on page 2 of the Daily Independent papers.
And on Al Jazeera Nigeria, the top of the headline is Gumi establishes schools for bandits. The writer under that says insists education amenities key to stopping banditry and seeks partnership with federal government, states and local governments. All of that is on page 8 of Al Jazeera Nigeria. EFCC detains Okonkwo, Managing Director, First Bank Holdings. You can continue reading the story on page 10. Slain General orders. Zulum postpones project commissioning. That is on page 14. We didn't suspend Ward Congress in Zamfara, APC is saying on page 30. Inflation drops to 15.99% in October despite rising food prices. That is on page 11. On concerning 2023, controversy over Kalu's presidential posters in Umuahia. That is on page 29. CBN grants Airtel Africa approval as super agent. That is on page 10. And there's an editorial there titled Averting Another ASU Strike. The story can be continued on page 3 of Al Jazeera Nigeria. Uniben grants 500 overstayed students amnesty to graduate.
Wow.
That is on page 10 of Al Jazeera Nigeria. That's all. Thanks.
It's funny, right? Why keep them when you know you're still going to let them go anyways?
Please let my people go.
Oh my days.
All right, moving on to the Nigerian Pilot. Nwodo warns of constitutional crisis if Nigeria fails to restructure before 2023. The story is on page 5. Again, bandits set houses ablaze, kill villagers, kidnap others in fresh Niger attack. The story is on page 8. And boldly written on the front page, ASU strike looms as union issues 3-week strike notice to federal government over failure to meet agreement. Says memorandum of action signed by both parties 1 year ago not met. Expresses dissatisfaction with federal government over attitude to unions issues. Set up committee to investigate Pantami's professorship. All of this you can find on page 8 of the Nigerian Pilot newspaper. And still on the paper, Sheikh Gumi establishes school for herdsmen in Kaduna Forest. Still on page 8 of the Nigerian Pilot. Self-centeredness mars socio-economic change in Nigeria. Professor Jega to leaders. The story is on page 11. Head of service threatens to sack 426 workers for rejecting posting. This story you find on page 5. Lucky Tollgate saga, panel of inquiry submit report to Governor Sanwo-Olu. This you can find on page 5 of the paper. Merchant Navy decrees police arrest of its 108 personnel seeks their release. The story is right on page 10 of the Nigerian Pilot. Inflation rate dropped to 15.99% in October. Stories on page 6 as well. And at the very bottom of the paper, Buhari approves another 656.1 billion naira bailout facilities for state. Finance Minister. The story is also on page 6. And that'll be all on the Nigerian Pilot. I think we're able to cover
all the papers we have today.
Yeah, on the front page, we have a picture of the Deputy Governor of Rivers State receiving an award or certificate from the Vicar of St. Herbert Anglican Church, Venerable Anthony Christian Abbey, during a 2021 Adult Harvest Thanksgiving service in Rivers State. It's the local government area in Rivers State. Yeah. And that'll be all.
Yeah.
Thank you for being a part of the newspaper review show. It comes up every day from 9:30 to 10 a.m. here, where we'll give you all the news update and all the happenings in the world. Yes. Don't forget, this is Lagoon Radio, and you can always listen to us 24/7 from wherever you are, in the corner of your room, anywhere in the part of the world. You can download our app on Google Play Store and App Store, irrespective of the device that you use. And you can also follow us on all our social media platforms. On Facebook at Lagoon Radio Nigeria, on Instagram and Twitter is at Lagoonradio.Ng. My name is Taiwo Adeola Shabilegbe, and thanks to Simidele Olabisioke and Nena Abigail Umba. Thank you very much, and thank you to my listener out there. You're the real MVP. Do not go nowhere. Coming right after now is another exciting show you don't want to miss out. You want to buy land, you want to sell land, you need to join. You don't want to be duped. You need to listen to the next show coming up by 10 a.m. Good morning and bye.
You are listening to